So yeah, so I am Jia Peng. So actually my background is more different than you. My background is on the cloud engineer, which is working on the infrastructure side. So basically what I'm doing for my job is gathering the requirement from the clients to, let's say they want to host how many server they are trying to design, the network part, and also the traffic flow from the clients to the server, and then to calculating the costing of the resources also. So this is what I doing for my daily task. So actually I'm presenting on the AI mixed infrastructure, which integrating the IaC AI agents and the markdown. I think, do you guys like ever heard what is IaC before? Like IaC. So for the to introduce what is IaC lah. So IaC is the infrastructure as code. So I think most people think that the cloud is like using the, for example, like I using the Azure service to create the server inside there, using the Azure portal to create the server, to create the network and so on, right? So actually we the IaC to using the code to deploy the infra resources inside the cloud. Yeah, so this is the IaC, what IaC is lah. So actually I will talk about the experience before the IaC and AI lah. So actually for my currently, right, in my current company, I also actually using the Azure portal to create the resources and so on. So actually my idea from the IaC is coming from my tech lead lah. So I have gathering with my tech lead. So my tech lead is talking. We are talking about the IaC to using the code to deploy the infra. But my tech lead was asking me like, is it our company still got try to use the IaC to deploy the resources and so on? So my company don't have this IaC code to deploy the resources. So we also didn't like integrate with any AI to deploy the infra resources inside the cloud services. So actually I'm thinking like, how do we use the AI on the infrastructure, not only on the software code, but also in the infrastructure level, like the cloud services. So before the IaC and AI, actually we are doing the manual provisioning, like we are scatter the requirements from the emails, tickets, and then do the changes like clicking in the portal one by one to do the things. And then when we do the documentation, we're also trying to keep clicking the website portal to see what is the settings on the portal itself. So which is quite troublesome for this one, because you have to click one by one all the things together. So after this, right, so I'm thinking like, what if we integrating the IaC, the markdown code, like the skills markdown and the agent markdown with the IaC? So my idea is, first we will creating the markdown. So we are gathering the requirements, and then we to write all the requirements inside the markdown files, and then let the AI agent to read the markdown to what is the requirement, what is the specification for the server, for the network, and so on. So the AI agent will read, and then it will generate IaC, the infrastructure code inside the IDE itself, and then we are using the IaC to run some command to deploy the infrastructure inside the Azure or AWS. So after that, right, during when we trying to deploy the infrastructure using the code, right, we do have some command to validate, to plan, to scan all those things using the the IaC code they are using is a Terraform. So Terraform has provide some of these feature to deploy it. And then finally, we will just do the pull request, because we can also push our infrastructure code to the GitHub repo or the GitLab repo itself. So we also, my idea is like, we also have a PR review, the approval, then only we will apply it when we're doing the production, because we can't simply like doing Terraform apply, then we just already apply inside the production infrastructure like this. So we are also have some kind of the PR review to approve, then only deploy to the production infrastructure. So let me show you what is the like, how exactly looks like the IaC. Wait, sorry. Maybe I need to do this. Sorry. Okay, so this is how IaC looks like. Sorry. So IaC looks like. So currently I'm using the Terraform. So actually, I'm not sure the AWS has its own infrastructure code things, the native service, but Azure itself has a native service called Bicep. The Bicep is also looks like this. You have the code to define what is the specification for your network and also the server itself. So basically, I will have the requirements in this TF variable, so I can like define what is the region, the CIDR for my network, and then the subnet for my network, and also the instance type, the VM instance type, what we are using for the VM itself. So basically, if you see the main TF, so this is the code like how do you deploy the resources, and then you can see there's a lot of things defined inside here. So this is just a basic code on that. Then we can try to deploy like this. So this can you see? Yeah. So this is the basic thing that we will do lah. We'll try to Terraform plan first, then it will Terraform command, it will read the coding that you do inside the code. Then it will read. After read, then it will come out the result, say what is the things that it will create inside the AWS or Azure. So you can see there is a AWS subnet there, the additional subnet that I create inside here. Then you just see, or if let's say I want to add this one, then this is the result that I want. Then you only apply the Terraform apply the TF plan. So it only create a resource inside there. So how do I integrate this with the AI markdown agent is, I also got do my own, actually also generated by the AI. I also got do my own agents markdown, but it's more simple markdown because I only based on the markdown file and so on, not the coding background. So I'm trying to learn of it. So actually in here, right, I trying to mention like what is the main files that the AI agent need to read, the requirement.md, the skills.md, and also the IaC file and the documentation files. Then I also like define some of the behavior for the agents, read the requirements before generating or changing this IaC code, and some of the like security concern, because we don't want like agent to mess up our infrastructure, because say it mess up our infrastructure, then it will mess up all the production environment. So we will some of the rules to avoid that. Yeah, so we also do some the rules for the agent itself. So this is for the behavior for the agent's behavior. This is what I'm thinking to use the agents to as a behavior stuff. And then we also have a skills here to define what is the workflow that I need to follow. Like for example, if let's say I want to create one more VM virtual machine inside the environment, so I will define to based on the requirement MD to pass the infrastructure requirement to identify what is the required resources, then checking all the things, then only you can update the Terraform files, then to update the environment variable, if there is new variables for it, then update the documentation and so on. So this one is just do the automate process to do whole flow. Use the AI agent to do the whole flow, including the documentation, because we don't want to like doing it by myself, recording the documentation one by one by me. So I'm using the AI is more faster when I do the documentation. So this is what I'm thinking for the skills markdown for the infrastructure. So for the requirement here, I also got so this one I have defined what is the requirement 1, requirement 2, but this one the requirement MD actually I'm trying to see if I can separate, like for example what Kowa show is to by feature module. So maybe I can also like separating the requirement by requirement 1, requirement 2 but right now I don't have reading it because I'm only touch with this. So actually I just define what is the requirement, that what I want to do, then what is the region, what is the resource that I want inside there, what is the expected result, and also the documentation in this. So maybe I can demo on this, so like see how it works. So basically I just copy this one and then I try to paste here. So maybe there's, I mentioned here, this is the requirement tree. For example, then I want to create subnet. Also, I want to create one subnet in VPC itself. VPC is the virtual network. So it's some kind of address range for the environment itself. So we can create a different subnet inside there. So for maybe inside this VPC, I want to create one is called 3/24, the subnet inside there. The expected result is I want to build the new subnet, and then the documentation, all this is the same. So after this one, right, after I done the requirement, so I go to the Cortex agent because currently I'm using the Cortex itself. So wait a second, let me check where is my Cortex. Yeah, Cortex here. So in the Cortex here, right, so maybe I just say I have new requirement, help me to create. Actually, it's because you already read the agents markdown and also the skills markdown. So know what is the behavior, then what is the things that I want. So I just try this. A new requirement help me to create. Then I just click. They will try to think lah. They will try to working on it. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Actually, it will read every time lah. So I'm not sure. This part maybe I will try to refine it, but it will read every time. So actually, it's quite slow compared to the cloud and also the cursor AI and so on. Yeah.
So it knows the requirement tree is the new requirement.
Yeah, correct. So it will see. So it will read down all the IaC file, then see what is the new requirement. Because when we create those requirement 1 and requirement 2, all the code it will generate as a code inside there. So it will read out all the code, see what is the things that missing in the requirement. So you will see there is a requirement tree, another subnet. So it will try to update the network modules or all those code inside there. So I don't need to care like what is the code inside there, because before this AI and also before this AI actually I refer to the IaC document one by one to see, like for example, because Azure or AWS have a lot of the resources, then their resources have specific things that you need to mention when you create the code. So I need to refer the code, the documentation one by one to see what is the code that I need to include inside there. So actually, if using AI, I don't need to care because it will automatically generate all the codes itself. But it's actually quite slow because you need to like see what is the code changes, then verify all the things after you generate the code. Yeah, then it will to validate the things. Then I just say yes. Then it will validate all the things for me. Yeah, then I just use Terraform plan to see what is the things that I will create. Because basically this part is just want to see whether anything that has happened, any error inside there, then it will fix. So currently it doesn't have any things. So you can see there is a result there to say that after you run the Terraform plan, right? So it will say there is a one thing to add, which is this subnet. So it will say because I just asked him to like not to run this apply, because after you run this it will directly deploy. So it will mess up all the things. So I have specifically say you don't need to Terraform apply, just plan it and show me. Yeah. So after this, right? So actually, if you goes here, right? Then maybe accidentally, I didn't met that issue because I have specifically mentioned inside the agent.md markdown file you must do this If not, then later it will say, oh, I applied this, then mess up everything. Yeah, mess up whole environment actually. So actually, I trying to avoid that And then if like let's say I try to run this again, then we will see what is the things that it will add. If let's say I try to apply after plan, then we using this command to apply. So it will generate. So it will creating all this subnet inside the AWS. So if I come to the AWS, right? So if you refresh this, so eventually, you can see there's a requirement tree subnet here. That is already created inside the AWS. Oh, sorry. It will create inside the AWS already, which is a requirement tree subnet here. Oh, sorry. Sorry, subnet. Yeah. So there is a subnet It's already creating. Yeah. So actually, I'm trying to integrate all the things from there like how does it work with the infrastructure. So actually, this is the things. This is the end-to-end workflow for my POC of this AI integration with the AI. So it's very simple. You just write down the requirements, then agent read, agent update the IaC, run all the validation, then we create. But this part I haven't do it because this part is involved of the CI/CD. Actually, this is my next step to develop the CI/CD for this. So the AI can help to pull requests. Then our human side will be the one who approve it and so on to review all the code. Then only then after we approve, then only the CI/CD will do the code deployment to the GitHub. Then the GitHub there we will run the pipeline to deploy, to use the Terraform apply to directly deploy the resources inside the environment itself. Yeah, this involves the CI/CD part, and I'm working on it. This is my next plan for the CI/CD part lah. So this is the how's the traditional method vs the AI assisted method lah. So basically, it's very clear. It based on the requirements, we can capture clearly in the markdown file, and the IaC actually we can just ask the agent to drop code instead of manual coding by the engineer itself. So in this part, right? So we are working as a cloud architect. For example, I'm only to think what to design, what resources they need to use, they design all the architecture. Then after that, I design all the solution already. Then I just ask the agent, I want these resources, help me to create it. Yeah, that's the things. So we are act as a cloud architect already. And for the AI assisted, we will have a human review and also the automated analysis to see what is the code review, what is your issue inside the code and so on. Then for the speed, basically it's a faster iteration, and the knowledge sharing, simple. We can document the repeatable and easier onboarding on the user instead of dependent on the individual expertise for it, since we are asking the agent help us to do the documentation. So yeah, I think that's all for me. Actually, it's quite short, just my proof of concept on how this AI can be integrated with the infrastructure, the cloud services. So actually, I just want to show there's also the architecture and the markdown. So you can see what is the flowchart in there and so on. This is like, for example, if let's say you want to hand over to the next person, then the next person know how to use this Terraform to deploy the resources and so on. Maybe because some of the engineer, they don't have cloud engineer, they don't have the IaC background. Yeah, so they can refer to this and see what can he do to deploy the resources inside there. Any questions?
Okay, thank you for the talk.
Yeah.
Okay, my first I verify what I understand from the this workflow lah. Basically, when you prompt it like just now you prompt like I have new requirements. Please help me to implement it, right? So what the AI will basically do is like to read the requirement.md and then see the new requirement over there and then integrate it into the IaC file in the Terraform file that you have like defined over there, right?
Correct.
All right. Oh, okay. So let's say is there like cases where like you have existing requirement already that is already deployed live on the Azure platform over there, and maybe then suddenly maybe the company something you got new requirement or something, existing deployment has to be like updated or something like that, change this subnet or maybe add new server, close that server, something like that. In that case, will such a scenario happen?
Yeah, actually it will have. So for Terraform, how it read the current state, right? So there is a file called Terraform TF state. So this state is actually something like a caching for your current existing project setup. So for example, if let's say previously my requirement, I have 2 subnet set up using this Terraform, right? So after you deploy using this Terraform, it will actually store the state inside the TF state. So so after that, if let's say I have a new requirement to create one more subnet inside there, so actually it will read the current setup using this TF state first to see what is the currently already set up. Then to define this is the new requirement for that. So those things are doing during the Terraform plan. So after you run the Terraform plan, like, so you can see they will tell you what is the things that will be created. So those existing things, they will not be recreated again.
Oh.
So if let's say I want to delete one subnet from there, I just delete the code from the Terraform code. After I deleting, right? So after I run this Terraform plan, it will read something's missing from the code. So it will consider this as a destroy. So after you run the Terraform plan, it will mention here, there is one subnet will be destroyed. So the destroyed resources is the resources they will delete from the environment itself. Yeah. So we don't simply change the code inside the Terraform code also lah. So if let's say I deleting this, right, means I want to delete these resources from the environment. Yeah, this is how Terraform to define lah what is the resources will be deleted. Yeah. So Is this answer your question?
Yeah, answer my question.
Yeah.
So because just now, my first question is actually like I'm curious lah. Like if let's say I just go into the requirement.md and then I just change the requirement to maybe delete some of the subnet, maybe like add a new server, something like that. Then my curiosity is like how the AI agent will actually know what is the difference between the previous one and the current one. So your answer just now is basically there is a state file that is being stored over there, right?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, bigger. Maybe also one idea that I come out also is like because maybe in the future when I got modify the requirement.md something like that, then maybe it can inside the agent instruction file like the cloud.md maybe or the agent.md maybe also can tell it to compare it with the different commit.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
You can compare it with the different the previous commit. It can perform a git difference, and then you can see basically what line do you change and something like that. Then also combine with the Terraform state file, and then you can get a clear picture.
I see. Okay.
It can be like update lah.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the advice. Yeah. This one actually is very good advice. I will take it. Yeah.
Yeah, because just now I see. I think that one can also be done.
Yeah. Because sometimes they will just change the requirement to all the things. Then you need to compare, see what is the thing already changed. Yeah. Actually, good advice from that. Yes.
Also, additionally, like when tell it to implement something, maybe also can make it so that it come up with a plan first. Maybe because those changes, even if one line, that can be also be a large change to the whole infrastructure, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Maybe can also tell the agent to like first come up with a plan, and then also the agent should also give a reasoning in detail, like why the agent change this code, what is the reasoning behind that, like it can map from your requirement to the actual changes that it have done so, and then at the end we as like engineer, we go through the requirements, the plan that it give and then we approve it, and then only then it go implement the plan.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's my 2 cents for this.
Okay, Ken.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Any more questions?
Maybe a question.
So far, like your project, I mean, like for your real, have you started for use it in real project?
I actually don't have yet because my current company they wanted to put these things this one in the next contract actually my project next contract
Okay.
So actually by right this year we need to start on these IaC things, but because from scratch, when you're doing this from scratch, it's very easy because you are developing this from the scratch, then you are the pure new TF state file. So this one TF state file is something like a cache. You will know what is your current setup and so on. So let's say I want to import the existing resources inside these Terraform files, right? It's very hard. It's very difficult for us to do it. So eventually they want to put it in the next project contract. It will take time to do it.
So maybe we'll wait for your next.
This one is quite hard but for a small project, actually it will deploy to my own environment in here. So actually I'm trying to complete all the whole floors, then I only can present what is the thing that because I'm trying to I also got do the NPC server for myself. Just now I asking Junwei about, because I also got do the AI budget tracking software itself. So actually I want to do the whole floor from the developer code itself until the CI/CD, then until the hosting the infrastructure itself, buying the domain, host the SSL certificate and so on. So I want to do the whole floor to represent my portfolio as my portfolio. When I'm trying to do finding the next job, then I will say that I have one portfolio that designed by myself, all the solution that designed by myself. Yeah, just ask only. If I can answer, then I answer. 讲
看回你的发
Yes.
你发是其实大致上是可以了，但有几个点我觉得可能如果你要 apply 在你公司，你要注意的是第一，你的 agent， 你的 agent 我觉得我看你的那个 workflow 有几个 workflow， 所以我觉得你可以的那个 agent， 你分析那 agent， 然后在哪一个 workflow 做什么东西，
这个
然后这是一个点，第二个
对
点是你的那个 requirement 其实你可以变成一个 reference，变成一个你可以把它写成一个 example，过后你的 agent 读的时候，你可以叫他跟着那 example 去跟你去要那个 information instead of 全部写在这个地方。就它是一个 reference 啊。另外一点 doc 上面啊，看一下。
没有啦，这个只是我的来 handover 的 things 来的 AI 自己 generate 的一个 docs 啊，一个 markdown file docs，so that like next 那个 engineer 进来的时候还可以 refer to 这个 handover 的 docs to see like 他要怎样 run 这些 code 啊，他要怎样 run 这些东西，他要怎样去放他的 requirement 进来什么这样子。
所以你的 agent 那边已经有全部 skill 啊，像是你那个 agent 那边已经有写用什么 skill 啊，用什么 skill 用什么 tools 啊。
这里啦 ，but 我会想要 separate 啦 ，but 因为这个是第一个我自己 basically from scratch 我自己做出来，所以还没有这样仔细。因为我需要时间去来 differentiate requirements and also the skills 啊。So skills 可能我会 based on 这个 skill， 我会分成可能 VM skills、network skills， 然后 network skills 里面我会 define 来，如果你要 create 那个 network 的话，你需要这样做；如果你要 create 这个 VM 的话，你需要这样做，因为 different resources、inside the cloud, they will different the requirements from there. Yeah, so 我会分 skills 来 VM 那些啦 ，requirement 也是一样。就比如讲，可能 requirement skills right， 我也会分成可能我的 VM requirement 是什么，我那个 network 的 requirement 是什么这样子啦，我会这样去分啦。把这个是我自己做的一个 simple 的一个 markdown 啦 ，for POC only。呀，因为我只是要 show 来 how 这个 AI 这个 markdown 的东西可以 integrate with cloud services 啊。AWS, Azure, yeah.
Chinese or English?
Anything.
English.
Yeah, English.
Okay. So to confirm again, when you ask the agent to like do some changes to the requirements, whether it is new requirements or update to the requirements, right? It will go and modify the Terraform file itself, and then from what you said, like each of the configuration there is very strict, right? Like the setting and the parameter and everything must be like confirmed to the documentation at the Azure website. So right now the agent got like before it do the modification, does it like have a step to go to the website, see the official documentation, and then confirm this parameter can be used or that one. So that the agent don't actually hallucinate the like what is the parameter that it will just insert into the code, which if let's say there is a lot of modification, maybe we have a problem spotting it and then just do the deploy or something.
Actually that part I was trusting the agent. The agent itself already have a latest version documentation, read the latest documentation from the like for example the AWS website or the Azure website itself. So actually I'm trusting the agent for it lah. But if let's say there is an issue because maybe sometimes the things happen, some requirement is changing, right? So the code itself have an issue when they're defining this requirement. So actually I think because in the last step the agent will validate the code, will verify the code, and then run the Terraform plan. If actually there's something happen inside the Terraform code itself, right? The Terraform plan will also fail. Yeah, it will fail the command. Yeah, it will prompt say that this one is the outdated or something like yeah, that one. Yeah, so the agent itself can be identified from there lah.
I see. Maybe what because in my opinion maybe it can integrate with a workflow that before performing any update to like the Terraform file, at a step maybe it will go and check the official documentation. And then have you heard of one of the skill is called Contact 7?
Oh no.
Contact 7 is actually a skill that because we are right now to modify like whether it is like Terraform or maybe like TypeScript or any programming language or any library, we are trusting the AI to basically know like it knows the official documentation of the latest, right? But let's say it's suddenly one day the library got some breaking changes or something like that, then the agent wouldn't really know it. If very lucky, it will go and check and then see the latest changes lah. But then actually, let's say for that case, like if the library got some frequent changes, Then that one actually we got a library called not library, the skill called context 7. They just call it CTX7 which is a skill you can install to the agents, and then basically if you add a step to it, it is more. It got the MCP and also got the skill, and then it basically can go and always check the official documentation. It is more like its own setup kind of thing that like say I want to change it Terraform, then maybe you will go and search for the context 7 and then pull the latest documentation, and then it will know how to like do the changes.
I see. Okay. Can.
Just my 2 cents on that.
Okay. Can.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the advice. Okay.
I have one, but it is not related to AI lah. It is more related to Terraform lah. Because I noticed there's a wording, the costing lah. Because as for cloud engineer, the most important thing to consider is costing lah.
Yeah.
So for costing wise, how can it help by
using Terraform. Actually, Terraform doesn't help on the costing itself. For example, because when we trying to write the requirement, before we writing the requirement, actually we have a step like to define what is the resources that we need to use. First, we will design the architecture first to see what is the resources that we use. Then secondly, we will see what is the specification that we need to use. Where, for example, the VM itself, we want to use 4 CPU core and also the 16 GB RAM. They will find the instance size for it. After we gather all the requirement, then we specify all the things already, right? Then we will check what is the costing of that. So, for example, this is some extra knowledge for it. So, for example, how do I calculate the costing is using one thing is called pricing calculator. There is a Azure itself, there is a pricing calculator for it. So actually, like for example, if let's say I want to add a VM, then I just add a VM in here, right? Where's the VM? Yeah, add the VM in here. Then I specify like what is the region I want and so on. Then the Windows or Linux here. Then after that, right, when you go scroll down here, you can see there's an instance here. So what do I want to use? After that, then I will show what is the costing for per month. Then we will base on this costing to see what is the total cost for the whole environment itself. So for the whole environment itself, there's a pay as you go. The basic one is a pay as you go. But if let's say I already expect this server will be hosting as a long-term plan, 5 years, like 10 years and so on. So I can actually buy the reservation for it. So actually the reservation, it will have some discount. The Azure itself have some discount for this long-term plan and so on. Yeah, never mind, it's okay. So for example, it will have 21 US dollar only compared to like if you use, let's say you use pay as you go per month, it was 65 ringgit. So this one is for the long-term plan. Like for example, let's say you have 3 years, 5 years, you need to use this VM, then you can just buy the reservation for it. Yeah, but this reservation is actually buying for, like you totally just buy for 3 years instead of you paying it one by one, day by monthly. Yeah, there's some extra knowledge on the cloud services itself.
Means basically after you know the numbers, then you directly state in the Terraform.
Yeah, stay inside the Terraform, then stay inside just now the requirement markdown, say, oh, I want this instance, then what is the specification, what is the instance size I want, then what is the thing that I want, then I special inside the requirement, then it will help me to generate the code for it. So basically, the Terraform will be the execution, there's a workflow, it will place as an execution instead of planning. So the costing, the specification, all this is doing this during the planning part instead of the execution part. So Terraform and also the AI, all this is just help me on the execution part. So all this still we need to think what is the solution, then how to define what is the costing, then what is the best costing option for the client.
There's one question regarding to architecture. Have you ever use AI to provide some idea on some sort of architecture that
not really actually, but I'm not sure how AI can integrate it. For example, the Draw.io and also the Lucidchart. Maybe there's an AI already integrated in the Lucidchart, but I didn't use it before. So maybe next time I can use it for the architecture part lah. Like using the Lucy chart, maybe there's a built-in AI. Then I just say I want what things, then it will help me to generate the architecture. This one I can explore maybe after that. So yeah, but for currently I don't use it.
Any other question? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.